Hey mamas! Breastfeeding is one of those things they tell you is totally natural, but sometimes it feels anything but easy, am I right? Whether you're a first-time mom or you've nursed a baby before, there are definitely some common mistakes that can make breastfeeding more challenging than it needs to be. And trust me, I've been there, spit up stains and all. So, today, we're going to talk about the top 10 mistakes made when breastfeeding, and more importantly, how to avoid them. Because knowledge is power, and sometimes a little tip or trick can make all the difference. I know it can feel overwhelming sometimes, but hang in there. We're in this together. So, let's dive into the top 10 mistakes made when breastfeeding and how to avoid them. First up, let's talk about one of the biggest breastfeeding mistakes: not getting your baby into the proper position. Seriously, the right latch is everything. A shallow latch means they're not getting as much milk, and it can lead to sore nipples and poor weight gain. Aim for a nice, wide open mouth. Think big yawn here. Make sure their lips are flanged out like a fish, and their chin should be touching your breast. Practice makes progress. It might take a few tries, but you've got this. Mistake number 2 is a big one: waiting too long between feeds. Remember how I said breastfeeding works on supply and demand? Well, when you let your baby go too long without feeding, it's like sending a message to your body saying, "Hey, we don't need as much milk anymore." And guess what? Your body listens. Instead of sticking to a rigid feeding schedule, try to feed your baby on demand. That means paying attention to their hunger cues. Are they rooting around, sucking on their hands, or making little lip-smacking sounds? Those are all signs that your little one is ready to eat. Newborns have tiny tummies and breast milk digests quickly, so it's totally normal for them to want to eat every couple of hours, especially in the beginning. Remember, you're not just feeding your baby, you're also comforting them and building that incredible bond. So, snuggle up, relax, and enjoy those precious feeding moments. Okay, let's talk about mistake number 3, ignoring pain. Now, I'm not talking about the kind of mild discomfort that can sometimes come with those first few latches. I'm talking about real ouch that hurts. Pain. Listen to your body, mamas. If breastfeeding is consistently painful, something is wrong. It could be a latch issue that needs tweaking, but it could also be something else entirely, like thrush or a clogged milk duct. These things are totally treatable, but you have to speak up. Don't suffer in silence, thinking it's normal or that you just have to tough it out. If you're experiencing pain, reach out to your doctor or a lactation consultant right away. They can help you figure out what's going on and get you on the road to pain-free breastfeeding. Moving on to mistake number 4, over-relying on one breast. Some moms find that their baby naturally prefers one side, and that's totally fine. But always starting feeds on the same side can lead to an imbalance in your milk supply. The more your baby nurses on one side, the more milk your body will produce on that side. That means your preferred breast might become engorged. So switch sides during each feeding. Start each feeding on the breast your baby last finished on. This way, both sides get equal attention. Mistake number 5 is all about you, mama, neglecting your own health. You can't pour from an empty cup. If you're running on fumes, it affects your milk supply and energy. Make sure you're eating enough nourishing, whole foods, and don't forget about hydration. Finally, don't be afraid to ask for help. All right, let's move on to mistake number 6, skipping the burping. Now, some babies are champion burpers, letting out those big, satisfying belches with ease. But others, not so much. But even if your little one doesn't seem too gassy, it's still important to take a moment to burp them after each feeding. Why? Because trapped air can be uncomfortable for your baby, leading to fussiness, spitting up, and even difficulty sleeping. Plus, burping can help prevent gas from traveling down into their intestines, which can lead to even more discomfort. So, how do you burp a baby like a pro? Over the shoulder is a classic for a reason. Hold your little one so their belly is resting against your shoulder and gently pat or rub their back. You can also try sitting them upright on your lap, supporting their chin and chest with one hand while you pat or rub their back with the other. Experiment with different positions and see what works best for your baby. And remember, patience is key. Sometimes those burps can take a while to surface. Mistake number 7 is all about pumping, not knowing when or how to pump properly. Now, if you're planning on breastfeeding exclusively, you might not need to pump at all. But if you're going back to work, or you just want to have some backup milk on hand, then pumping is your new best friend. The key here is timing. You want to start pumping early on, even if you're not planning on being away from your baby for a while. This will help you build up a stash of milk and get your body used to the sensation of pumping. When is the best time to pump? A good rule of thumb is to try pumping after your baby's first morning feed. That's when your milk supply is usually at its highest. You can also try pumping after a feeding if your baby didn't completely drain your breasts. And don't worry if you're not pumping a ton of milk at first. It takes time for your body to adjust. Just keep at it, and remember, every little bit counts. Okay, let's talk about mistake number 8, giving formula too early. Now, I know there are a lot of different opinions out there about formula feeding, and I'm not here to judge. If you need to supplement with formula for whatever reason, that's totally fine. But if you're able to breastfeed exclusively, it's generally recommended to hold off on introducing formula for as long as possible. Why? Because introducing formula too early can actually affect your milk supply. Remember that whole supply and demand thing? Well, when you give your baby formula, it's like telling your body that it doesn't need to produce as much milk. Not only that, but introducing a bottle too early can also interfere with your baby's ability to latch properly. That's because sucking on a bottle requires a different technique than sucking on a breast. So, if you're able to, try to hold off on giving formula until your baby is at least 4 to 6 weeks old and your milk supply is well established. Mistake number 9 is a big one: not seeking help when you need it. Look, breastfeeding can be challenging. It's a learning curve for both you and your baby, and there are going to be times when you feel frustrated, overwhelmed, or just plain lost. But here's the thing, you don't have to go through it alone. There are so many amazing resources available to help you, from lactation consultants to support groups to online forums. If you're struggling with latch issues, pain, supply problems, or anything else related to breastfeeding, please don't suffer in silence. Reach out to your doctor, a lactation consultant, or a trusted friend or family member who's been there. And finally, mistake number 10, comparing your breastfeeding journey to others. In the age of social media, it's easier than ever to get caught up in the comparison trap. You see other moms effortlessly breastfeeding their babies, and you can't help but wonder, what am I doing wrong? But here's the thing, every mom and every baby is different. What works for one might not work for another. And just because someone else makes it look easy, doesn't mean it actually is. So, my advice? Put those blinders on and focus on your own journey. Don't compare your beginning to someone else's middle or your worst day to someone else's highlight reel. You're doing an amazing job, Mama. Trust your instincts, listen to your body, and celebrate your own unique breastfeeding journey. So there you have it, the top 10 breastfeeding mistakes and how to avoid them. Remember, breastfeeding can be challenging, but it's also one of the most rewarding experiences you'll ever have. You're providing your baby with the best possible start in life, and that's something to be incredibly proud of. Don't be afraid to ask for help, and most importantly, trust your instincts. You've got this, Mama. Thanks for watching. If you found these tips helpful, make sure to like this video, share it with other moms, and subscribe for more tips on breastfeeding and parenting. You've got this. See you next time.